Of course, Loki finds out, that this is his, if it's there to be found, Loki will find it.
This is the
Loki's
Death
cleverness.
Star. This is the Death Star vent of this
Yeah.
of this universe.
Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Audiobook Club podcast. My name's Jonathan and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Stephen.
So today we'll be looking at an audiobook called Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman, and it's also read by Neil Gaiman. So this book was first released in 2017, so this being 2022, where it's only been out about 5 years, so it's a relatively new book. But in terms of what it talks about, it's actually discussing Norse mythology, which of course is you can almost say it's history from the kind of Viking age, which was about, I think the Viking age was roughly 790 AD to 1100 AD. So the actual book itself is a retelling of Neil Gaiman's favourite stories from Norse mythology. So he's kind of taken the main idea of each of the stories and rewrote it down in essentially his own kind of how he views the story. And I think the very first chapter even discusses it's like an introduction on how Neil Gaiman got into the Norse mythology world. I think his inspiration was through the Marvel comics and through the character of Thor. So a lot of what I'd say most people would know about Norse mythology probably do come from the Marvel series, especially the movies, which most people, definitely around the same age as us, maybe into the 30s and the teens, would definitely be up to date with these kind of movies. So I wanted to ask my two co-hosts here, what did they know about this book? Had they read it before, or what are their views on Norse mythology, things like that?
Yeah, I had read this book a few times before. I'm a big Neil Gaiman fan. I've read a few of his books, his short story collections. I've read American Gods and the Graveyard Book. So when I saw that Neil Gaiman was releasing a mythology book, I was straight on this. I think I read this just a few weeks or maybe a month or so after it was released the first time. And yeah, that's the first time that I read this, and then I've come back to it a few times every now and then, because it's very like his short story books. It's a dip into different things happening, but there is a narrative overall, but it doesn't really tie together until later in the book. It is very short story orientated as well, I feel.
I thought it was like a pure history book, or not history book, but like a pure sort of boring, that sort of boring lecture history book sort of thing the whole time. So I was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't. As for Norse mythology, though, I've kind of bits and pieces here and there from different books and games and all sorts of media. Kind of blends in everywhere, so I wasn't going in dry to all the different tales and stuff and new bits and pieces.
Yeah, I think Norse mythology is very inspirational for a lot of modern day things. We'll get onto that in the future section, but yeah, I'd say a lot of people, would know about it without even realising what it is.
Yeah, the Marvel characters, as you said, Jonathan's probably the most popular example, and Lord of the Rings as well. I'm sure we'll discuss more on that.
World of Warcraft's another one. The Norse mythology is big in that too.
Yeah,
we can never. I said we can never forget the popular classic hit "Son of Mask," which also references Loki.
Of course, yeah, classic.
I haven't seen that movie in years.
You watch it all the time.
Probably for good reason, like
every year,
a couple times a year.
Yeah, so I guess the reason I chose this book then, firstly, is because I have a keen interest in like in general mythologies like Greek mythology, but Norse mythology as well as Greek would probably be my top two.
You're gonna love my next pick then.
The stories are just they kind of just shaped all the modern day stories. I'd say a lot of people like Shakespeare and stuff has taken a lot of what they know from these kind of mythology stories and things like that. The actual underlying meanings and ideas behind them. And then I just thought the book was very entertaining. This is the second time I've listened to the book. The first time I just it was one of them books I just kind of blew my mind. It was a bit like The Humans kind of effect on me. It was just I found it really entertaining and just so interesting. I also like the short story format of this. So the book is structured. Each chapter is its own individual tale. And I kind of think that's a bit different than what we've done so far. So this is more small tales, which do have, I guess, overlap in terms of small ideas, but not major overlap. So I did like the idea of going to this kind of format, just to try it out. And then, of course, as we've brought up, Norse mythology has just had a massive influence on a lot of the media today. So, those kind of sum up the main reasons I chose this book. So I guess getting on the actual without spoiler review. In the introduction chapter, Neil Gaiman discusses why he likes Norse mythology and his reasoning behind writing the book, essentially. And then after that chapter, we have many of the main chapters, the story chapters, each chapter being a different story, but it kind of goes chronologically. So the first chapter is before the beginning and after. So this is essentially the creating of the gods, and the last chapter is about Ragnarok, which is the end of all things in Norse mythology. I wonder if my two co-hosts here, want to talk about what they thought of the story without kind of giving any spoilers. How they would review it. Did they like it? Did they enjoy it?
I really, really enjoyed this book. I think there's a big debate over what Neil Gaiman's best book is, whether usually the one that's mentioned most is American Gods, which, as the title would suggest, is also about deities. He does seem to have a fascination with that kind of with that subject matter. I think that Neil Gaiman is I think Neil Gaiman is at his best when he's writing short form. His short story collections, Smoke and Mirrors, Fragile Things, Trigger Warnings are all great, and this is like an addition to that. Only it's based on real tales of Norse mythology. If you are looking for like an educational read to become like an expert on mythology, this probably isn't the book that you're looking for. This is more like an introduction. If you want some of the tales told in an interesting way, it will deepen your knowledge, especially if you're a newbie to the Norse mythology. But it is more of just an entertaining read. It dips in and out of the tales. It gives you a good overview of like the main characters and everything. I really enjoyed this book, the way it's set up and everything.
Yeah, I like the book. I did struggle with some parts of it. Like I like that it's all short stories, but when it starts to try and tie the narrative together, that's when I started having problems, because it's like really loosely related in ways, and it's not super fleshed out, which kind of was kind of a bit jarring for me. But overall, I enjoyed it. I think one of the things I would say is that there was a few things as well that I like, background stuff, or I'm not sure how to describe it, but certain aspects of like the characters and stuff that I found it hard to picture in a way. Maybe I'll get onto that a bit later, but I would say I liked it with some issues.
Yeah, we'll definitely get onto the issues in a bit here in the more in depth. For myself, as I've said, I absolutely love this book. And I think what Michael said is quite accurate. It's not going to go too in depth, but I think for entertainment purposes, that's good. If you want to just be entertained by these stories, this is like the perfect book. But if you're a person like wanting to actually delve deep into all these stories, because this only covers Neil Gaiman's favourite ones. Maybe I think this book would serve as a good introduction, but it's not going to give you a really in-depth review. But yeah, I absolutely loved it. I think I just wanted to bring up the difference in the audiobook. I think because of the Norse the language and stuff like that, we were kind of joking about there before, a lot of the words and names are quite hard to pronounce. So I think reading the book could be quite difficult, but listening to the audiobook, letting Neil say the word and then you kind of know how to say it yourself would probably be a lot better, definitely for me. But again, I mean, just reading, not understanding the word, it's mostly names, so you kind of get the idea.
Yeah, because we've got notes in front of us now, and these names, they look very complex, but it's very seamless when Neil Gaiman is reading them.
Yeah, I think as well, of course, we're probably going to say some of the names here, and we'll possibly get them wrong, so hopefully people are kind to us and let us away with.
I actually read a review that Neil Gaiman's pronunciation of the names is actually terrible. That was by like an Icelandic person, or so they said anyway.
You never know if that's just someone trying to be hating, or if they're
yeah.
Well, yeah, I can't remember the exact wording, but they found it jarring. They rated it 1 star because of that. So
right,
but I liked it.
It's good that Jonathan qualified then that we are probably going to make some mispronunciations then, because I think like even Northern Irish people, we struggle to say just the ordinary words correctly, so we're definitely going to struggle with these.
Yeah, I mean, most of when I'm looking at one of these words, I'm kind of just thinking, what did Neil Gaiman say? So if he was wrong, then yeah, I'm going to be wrong. But you know what? As long as we can pass the message along, it makes no difference. That's the whole
if you
point
hate
of
us, yeah, if you hate us, you are criticising Neil Gaiman. That's what we're saying.
Right. So I think we've gone over the short review. So we're going to get more in depth into each chapter. So the structure here will kind of go over each of the chapters, maybe skim over some of the shorter, less interesting ones, and maybe get in more depth into the more interesting ones, and discuss the characters brought up in each of those chapters. So yeah, the first proper story chapter is called Before the Beginning and After. Essentially, this is the beginning of the gods. So it's actually Odin being the main god. It's his father being created, and I think it's something to do with a cow licking the life tree that creates the gods. It's quite an interesting creation story. And then I think the milk of the cow then feeds. So the character is Ymir, spelled Ymir. You then have Buri, who is the ancestor of all the gods. So Buri's grandchildren would be Odin, Vili, and Ve. So what we probably know from most people would be familiar with Odin from the Marvel comics and from the Marvel films. But Vili and Ve are the brothers of Odin, who we do meet in this book. So people might not be as familiar with them, but Odin being the main character here. So they eventually then kill Ymir. They take over and become the gods. So this actually, the reason I wanted to discuss this part in particular is this is very similar to what happens in Greek mythology. So people who've read what's the name of that book?
Mythos? Is it Mythos?
Yeah, Mythos. Yeah, Mythos by Stephen Fry. If you've read that, they talk about the beginning of the Greek gods, in which Zeus and I can't remember who his brothers and sisters are, but Poseidon and Hades, they actually end up killing
Kronos or
their parents. Yeah, Kronos. Yeah, they end up killing them to take over. So it's very similar kind of beginning in terms of the children killing their parents and their grandparents. Which I just thought it's quite interesting. The two civilizations fought the same, and there's another interesting one which comes up later with the creation of humans, which of course shares similarities with Christian belief in how humans were created, the first two humans, but we'll talk about that when we get to that chapter. But I just always find it quite interesting when you have overlap and like things like that. You wonder, did they just come up with the same idea twice, or did they did the Vikings, were they influenced by the ancient Greeks? It's just quite
or
interesting.
Was it real?
Yeah, exactly. Did it actually happen both times?
Yeah. Does it all come from
both times,
Does it all come from the same source material?
I would say, at a guess, it probably all comes from the same place, and then they sort of adapted it to fit their own sort of society.
I would guess certain things really did happen. Like in most religions and mythologies, there's always like a big flood story. So there probably was this epic proportion flood that was mythologized. So I think stuff like that, would all be adapted, but it would be applied to the different gods and stuff.
Yeah, I just think it's so interesting when you see wee links like that. Yeah, I think the floods is mentioned in mythos. There's like a flood, and obviously we have the Noah flood and kind of like Christian and Jewish.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they continue on this chapter then. The Odin, they eventually create the first humans. So that's Ask and Embla, which take the names from the ash tree and the elm tree, which they're made from. And these are the first two people. So yeah, like I was mentioned there, these kind of contrast of the first two, Adam and Eve, from Christianity. It's funny that they, it seems like a lot of cultures start, just with two people. I guess that's probably is how it started. Well, and like that's how they believed it started, because you have the two, they make four, but then you always think then what's going on, like, because if it goes with two, then it's going to have to mean that all your children are going to have to breed together.
Some amount of inbreeding, yeah.
Yeah, so
going on, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that
it wasn't thought through.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean the Norse mythology, of course now it's just a bunch of stories for us, but I mean this was their religion. Like this is what the people living in Scandinavia and Iceland and stuff back 1,000 years ago. This is what they did believe in. So it's quite interesting, that they, thought that this was all going on. You just wonder how all this starts. Like, who's the first person that comes up with these stories? Like, I guess once you have like a base for these kind of stories, it just grows and grows over hundreds of years. But yeah, it's just funny to see where it all came from.
Yeah, things are added on gradually over time. That through retellings, things are developed. I'd imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so then the next chapter then I think is another interesting one. Sorry,
before we move on, just the first thing that kind of I kept coming back to, right, and it sort of starts with this chapter, I suppose. So Ymir is the ancestor of all the giants, right? But he's also the ancestor of all the gods. Is that right?
I believe so.
Right, so then, because I kept wondering this the whole way through the book, so the gods and the giants are basically the same thing then?
Yeah, I think there's...
So
I don't actually...
Yeah, so that...
I don't think Ymir is ancestor of gods. I thought he was just...
No, yeah, sorry.
They were just...
Yeah, Ymir is the ancestor of all the giants, and Buri is the ancestor of all gods.
Okay, because maybe I must have missed that then, because this was one of the issues that I had, because the gods and the giants are fighting all the time, and the book kind of makes it clear that they're different, right, and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, but then, it was just kind of grating on me that that I was like, but the gods must be giants as well, and I kept coming back to it, but glad we sorted that out.
Yeah, so the Ymir, the ancestor of all the giants, and Buri, the ancestor of all the gods, they were both created when the cow licked this tree or whatever.
Right.
I think like the giants, because in a lot of stories giants are just giants, but in Norse mythology it seems like they are on an even pedigree. They're like on the same hierarchical I can't even get the word out. They're on the same level as the gods, but because what you always imagine is the gods are on the very top.
Yeah.
But it seems like giants are fairly even towards them, and there's even in the stories we find out they even excel against them in some ways. And one thing I just wanted to say about this beginning too that I found interesting was the fact that Ask and Embla were made from the trees. There's a lot of symbolism and stuff towards trees, and a lot of we'll get on to the next part with Yggdrasil, but it's interesting because the tree is life and everything, and it also makes me think of the game Elden Ring, which is it's I wonder how much that drew from Norse mythology.
Yeah,
Tons.
say a lot.
I
Yeah,
would say.
Yeah.
You see Yggdrasil in all sorts of media, like not parodies, but sort of copies.
So the next chapter is Yggdrasil and the Nine Worlds. So yeah, we've mentioned Yggdrasil there a few times. So it's the world tree. And I don't think there's any mention of how it was made or where it was created from. It's just kind of always existed. And then the 9 realms exist around its roots. So they essentially spawn from there. So the realms that we're introduced to, the ones you might be familiar with from the Marvel is Asgard is the home of the gods. And then you also have Jotunheim is the home of the giants. So that's like the cold place that Thor and Loki travel to a few times throughout the film series of Thor. And then you have other realms then, like Helheim is supposed to be hell, similar to the Christian hell idea of hell. And then you have one important place is Midgard, and that is essentially Earth for us. It's where the humans live, and that's in between Asgard and Jotunheim. And then Midgard is linked to Asgard via the Bifrost, or Bifrost as he pronounces it there, but I know it's pronounced Bifrost in the Thor films. So that's that rainbow bridge. So in terms of the gods, you also have then the gods are split into, it seems, 2 sides. It seems to have the Aesir, so that would be Odin, Thor and all, but you also have the Vanir, and then the giants as well they kind of are as powerful as the gods as well, but they seem to be the kind of the bad guys almost. But some of the stories don't, they're not always, but it seems to be a constant conflict between the gods and the giants. As we'll see in most of the chapters, it's usually the underlying kind of story. I think Asgard being probably the most betrayed place in most things. We do see it in the Thor series, and it is, of course, the famous Valhalla is like a drinking hall where warriors and heroes are supposed to go after they die, where normal people and people that die of old age or sickness go to Helheim. So do you have any thoughts about any of the 9 worlds, or any ideas about the Yggdrasil, the world tree?
Well, this is where my second problem comes in, because, as it says, I was trying to flesh out the world in my brain, and the concept of the 9 worlds is like I couldn't wrap my head around it, because they travel between these worlds all the time, right? But I'm like, how are these worlds separated, right? Are they like different planets? Are they different dimensions? What are they? And I was like, how are they traveling between them? And that was something I just couldn't wrap my head around.
Yeah, I think like they're supposed to all be at the roots of the tree, and I don't think like you can travel directly through the middle of the tree. You can only travel around it essentially. That's kind of I seen a picture there that looked like that was the idea, but I'm not sure if that's the case. This book doesn't go too much into the traveling aspect between worlds. I know that
that's kind of what I mean. Like it's sort of suggested that the characters are traveling between it, but it doesn't say how or anything, or doesn't go in depth. And for me, I like things to be like well established.
Yeah, the rules of space travel essentially. I think it's supposed to kind of be almost different dimensions. Like you have to go through a gate to get to the other one. It's not like you can just travel like space, where you can say travel in from any direction to get to something.
Yeah,
it's more of a case of you have to go through a gate. So I know the Bifrost is the gate from Asgard to Midgard, but I think in the Thor series the Bifrost seems to be able to transport them to anywhere, like Jotunheim and wherever they want to go. So I'm not sure how it's supposed to work. Don't know, Michael. Do you have any ideas on this?
I don't really think about it, to be honest. I just suspended my sense of disbelief for it. I think it's if I wanted to explain it, I would probably just say, they used a portal or something like that. I don't no, I don't need the rules as established for myself. I can just I kind of just wave that stuff away, to be honest.
Yeah, just accept it.
I could accept it, right? But I don't in other circumstances. But here, for some reason, I couldn't let it go. I kept being like, but how are they getting between them?
Yeah,
I don't know.
No, fair enough. Like I guess, I think me and Michael have said before that this book doesn't go too into depth. What you need is like a more historic book on this that maybe discusses. Yeah. Sometimes, too, there seems to be a lot of stuff in Norse mythology they don't know. Like I said, there, the world tree, no one knows where it comes from. Maybe they just kind of never, because maybe it wasn't important to them either. The Vikings or whatever that made up these stories. They were just like, you just travel here and there. It doesn't matter. You just go through a door.
Yeah.
They probably, because they weren't thinking about space travel and stuff.
As we will talk about later too, they don't even know the future of their own mythology. It's just it's kind of left open ended then, isn't it?
Yeah, so the next chapter then is kind of one of the main, or one of the most interesting ones, I think, in terms of how something came to be, and it's called Mimir's Head and Odin's Eye, and essentially it's the story of how Odin lost his eye. So you always see him in the Thor Marvel films. It's Anthony Hopkins. He always has his eye bandaged or an eye patch on. It's just, I don't think they ever talk about it in the show or in the movie, but essentially this is the story of how he loses his eye, and I think it's a bit stupid of a story, which is why I like it so much. Just, you think it's probably going to be in battle or something like that, he gets stabbed in the eye, but it's actually he sacrifices his eye in order to be able to drink from the well of wisdom, and that's why I think one of his names is the all wise or whatever like that. Well, it's the All Father, but he's also something to do with wisdom.
Is it all seeing as well?
All seeing, that's it. Yeah, so he's supposed to be extremely wise, and he can see. I don't know if it's into the future or whatever. I don't think he has that power, but he can see what's going on in different worlds at this time and things like that. He just has I think there was a good comparison there, and J.R.R. Tolkien admitted that Lord of the Rings and stuff was heavily influenced from Norse mythology, and the character of Gandalf can really compare to Odin, in terms he just seems to know all the answers all the time, and he's just this powerful being, but he's not. They're not the thing about the Norse gods isn't they're not immortal. They're not all powerful and invincible. They can die, which one of the stories we'll get into as well. But it's this pure wise figure that you just don't know how they know all this knowledge. But I guess at least this story tells us how Odin sacrificed his eye to become this character.
Yeah, this is a bit of a shorter chapter as well, but it's it was interesting, and just as in terms of as an origin story, and it's interesting throughout these stories how goofy that the Norse gods are, because my area of I wouldn't call myself an expert on any mythology, but the closest I am would probably be in Greek mythology. And there is less slapstick, and it's a lot more brutal, and there's not as much fun, I would say, in Greek mythology, unless I don't know some of the lesser known stories and stuff. But that's something I always find interesting about these stories. They're very whimsical and silly at times.
I wanted to know more about Mimir. Why is he trying to drink? Why is he hanging out by that well all the time?
I believe that's his well.
But
he's Odin's uncle.
I like the chapter. It was there's a lot in there to unpack, mysteries around why, like I said, why is Mimir hanging out by the well? Why does Odin want to sacrifice his eye? All this here, and then there's stuff about the war too, isn't there, in this chapter? There's a war that goes on between the two types of gods or something.
Yeah, so I think what happens is then Mimir he gets sent to the Vanir, who are the other. So Odin and all are the Aesir, so the Vanir are the other gods, and they kill him and actually send his head back to Odin. Yeah, so I can't remember. Is that that's like a bad, like they're sending his head back? Like Odin liked him, because it was his uncle. Like, but it wasn't like Odin was asking for his head. They were doing that, yeah, as part of this war. Kind of goes on between them.
Yeah, and then he leaves the head in the well, then just to stew for a couple hundred years.
Sure. Why not? Like. So the next story, I think this one again is another origin of something that I quite enjoy. How did this happen? That's called the Treasure of the Gods.
Yeah. This is one of my favourite stories.
I think this is my favourite.
Yeah.
Of all of them.
Yeah. This it's quite an entertaining story. So what happens is Loki essentially cuts the hair of Thor's wife Sif. I'm assuming this is some kind of prank or whatever. And in order then, to make up for the damage, Loki makes a wager with two groups of dwarf smiths. So that's the sons of Ivaldi and the brothers Brock and Aether. And the wager is that they have to create the best treasure, and then the gods will decide what's the best. And Loki wants them to make this hair as part of one of the gifts. But without them knowing that all he's interested in is getting his hair back for stuff. But in this, they actually end up creating a lot of the items that way kind of associate with the gods. So I think there's the ring on Odin's arm. I think it's called Draupnir, and it's every 9 days it drips 8 rings of equal beauty and value. I'm not sure then. One of the questions I would like to know is, do those 8 rings then also drip more rings? What I picture is in Harry Potter,
the multiplying treasure.
Yeah, that's what I can picture.
I did too. Yeah. I would say they don't. I think because he mentioned, who was it mentioned it? Was it Brock that says you can give him out as gifts?
Yeah.
Or was it one of the which I can't remember which side of dwarves made that one, but yeah, you could give them out as gifts or rewards or something. So
yeah, probably wouldn't be good then if they all had the same power.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like money.
Yeah. So they just made Odin the money printer.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think each of the gifts is supposed to bestow some kind of power, and this power is the power of wealth.
Yeah.
I think another
they should have lost for that.
It's true. The hair, of course, and then I think you have the spear for Odin, which you do see him within the Marvel films as well. I think that's Gleipnir, you call it.
Yeah.
I think if you make the thing about the spear is it will always have its mark if it's thrown, and also any oath that's swore upon it cannot be broken. I'm assuming that's kind of like the unbreakable promise in Harry Potter, that if you break it you die. I don't again discuss too much about that. I think one of the stories there is an oath swore on it, so
that happens a few times. Yeah. I think
it's quite an interesting power they bestow upon this item, but sure. But I think then the what we're mainly want to talk about is the hammer, Thor's hammer, Mjolnir. I think this is where a bit of the comedy and stuff comes on. Loki hasn't told anybody that this is his plan to get the hair back, but I'm assuming hopefully the other gods can work it out because the hair is one of the gifts. But then Thor's kind of like, well, actually, you know what? I really like this hammer. Loki's like, well, what about your wife's hair? And he's kind of like, well, this hammer's pretty good though.
To cut in on why Loki's so invested on who wins, by the way. So he goes to the two groups of dwarves and he says to one of them to make the hair and stuff, but then Loki being Loki, he tries to play the two dwarves against each other for a bit of madness, right? So he tells one of them that the other group thinks that they're better than them, essentially, right? And this one set of dwarves, Brock and Eitri, kind of don't think that he's up to something, rightfully so, and Brock does a wager with him that if they win, then they get his head. So Loki wants them to lose the contest.
Yeah.
And as
and
the
actively
guys were saying,
tries to sabotage them.
Yeah, so he actively tries to sabotage them, and he presents when Thor gets presented with Mjolnir, he's like, "This is the best gift ever,"
Yeah.
and Loki's kind of upset, tries to change everybody's mind
because his life hangs in the balance based on the decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the hammer too, it has this. It's like it is the one that's shown in the Marvel shows. It's the small hammer, and they actually go on about that. He's like, "Well, why is this hammer so small?" And they're like, "Well, it's still powerful, and it comes back to you. Wherever you throw it, it will always come back."
He has to use it. He has to use it one-handed, which is like it's supposed to be a defect, but it's part of what makes it such a cool weapon as well.
Yeah, no, he has another free hand. Yeah.
And the reason why it's so short is because Loki was trying to mess it up.
Yeah.
And,
he was trying to sabotage him, wasn't he?
Yeah, I really like this chapter because I think we get such a strong sense of character of Loki and Thor in this chapter, and the fact that Loki cuts off Siv's hair and he just says, "I did it because it was funny," and it's just it's just such a Loki thing to do. And then Thor, I think, threatens to break his bones one by one and everything, and Thor, we get
one by one every day.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Yeah.
We get the impression Thor is he's a bit of a goofball, just like in the Marvel movies, but he's also quite scary, quite imposing, But I love this chapter, especially the stakes and everything of Loki's well-being hanging in the balance while they assess these gifts, and then it is the comedic the way that it's like Thor's just waving away his hand saying, yes, my wife has lovely hair, but he's like enamored by his hammer.
I like how Loki weasels his way out of it too, because he loses the bet then, and Brock and Atri are declared the winners because of Mjolnir. But the way he gets out of it is by saying that they can't cut
his neck.
They can't cut his neck. Yeah.
Yeah. They have to take his head without touching his neck.
Yeah.
But obviously they can't do that.
What is it they do then? Again.
They tie a bit of leather or something around his neck, and he runs off.
Oh, he becomes a horse, doesn't he? He becomes a horse or something like that then, doesn't he? And that's how he hides for years.
Yeah, and then he disappears for a while.
Yeah, and of course we'll come back to that in one of the next few chapters.
The next chapter, yeah.
So I think the next chapter in the Master Builder. So essentially some builder comes in and says that he can build this wall, and Loki comes up with the idea of, there's no way he can build this wall. They want the wall around Asgard to protect it from, I think, the frost giants and things. And this builder says he can do it. Loki's like, we should take advantage of this situation because there's no way he can build this wall. What we'll do is he'll build most of it for us, and then we can just continue where he left off. I think the builder, he asks for the sun, the moon, and the goddess Freya as his rewards. But of course, everyone's kind of, Loki being very convincing and stuff, convinces everyone that, okay, we'll just go ahead with it. This guy's never going to be able to do it. But it turns out that the guy's got this horse. I don't even want to, it's Svaldafari or something like that. I don't even know how to pronounce it.
Svaldafari.
So this horse seems to be able to move bricks quite fast, and the actual builder himself is a giant. I'm assuming that he's he's covered his appearance in some way. He's appearing to them as he's not a giant, he's just a normal size person, I guess.
He's glamoured himself, yeah.
Yeah, but he's still got the abilities of a giant, the strength and stuff. And it becomes evident that he will complete this wall. He's getting quite close, and then Loki. So that was kind of a spoiler there. This is where Loki turns himself into a mare. So the horse giant's using is a male horse, and then Loki essentially becomes a female horse, and attracts this horse away, and he can't finish the wall because of this. So the giant then realizes he's been tricked and kind of loses the plot, and then has a fight with Thor, and Thor kills him. So this story I thought was quite good, just the actual general story. But I've just recently, just before rereading this, before I mentioned it, I was mentioning there that last week in the last episode that I was playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and this is one of the stories that comes up on it. there's like a boy building. It's not exactly a wall. It's more like a structure that projects like a shield. But same idea. It's like there's no way he can build the structure in time, and then ends up building it, and then he transforms into a giant then, and fights. You're actually Odin in it, so you fight Odin instead. But same kind of idea. But no, it's quite a good story. I think it's just, again, the story highlights Loki's kind of trickery, but then Thor coming on and being the hero and fighting this guy and saving the day essentially.
I didn't like the ending. I wanted the giant to win. He was working so hard for that wall, and it was nearly done. And yeah, they just murdered it.
Yeah, the gods are kind of dicks, aren't they?
Yeah, they're big time. Yeah.
Yeah, they go back in their deals a lot.
Like unnecessarily so.
Yeah, I like this chapter too. Like per Freya is seems to be like the subject of a lot of these bets and wagers.
Yeah, like they constantly like wager her hand in marriage and all sorts of
It's
stuff.
because she's the most beautiful or something.
And she never gets to say either. It's just like, this is happening.
Yeah, tough luck, Freya. It's funny like how much it, because like we all know that like to get into Valhalla you have to be a great warrior and you have to die in an honorable way, and so that's such a big thing about the Vikings and stuff like that. So it's funny that these stories aren't about just being the strongest or anything. It's just about, haha, I got you. It's like so much of these stories are like, it's like I outsmarted you, and it shows what was kind of valued, that to be clever and to deceive, it made a good story.
And just to go back to what we were saying about Freya there, like I think that kind of lets the story show its sort of the age that it was written in. Like the woman just gets handed over to like be taken away to get married kind of thing.
Yeah. And Thor again is being quite murderous here. We see this several times where he just brutally kills some people. So he's a goofball at one time, and then he's just a complete murderer at other times.
Yeah, I think another funny thing about this is that Loki obviously was there to attract away this horse, but then at the end of it he gives birth to a child. So, he also he was very committed to this distraction.
You have to commit to the bet.
That's the thing about Loki, he commits to the bet,
Yeah.
Whatever it takes. Because again, the gods told him, like, you messed this up. Because it was Loki's idea to make him do it even faster. For no reason other than they could do it faster. So I think they were going to kill him or something. Yeah. So he had to be committed to the bet. Yeah. Maybe he took it a wee bit too far, but
Okay. So the next chapter then, another interesting chapter that is called The Children of Loki. Essentially, Loki has 3 children with a giantess. So this is him again going out doing devious things and creating these. They're actually described as monstrous children. And I think in the Marvel films, he's born, he's like part giant or something. I'm not sure if that's discussed.
I think he is in this too.
Yeah,
I think it was mentioned at the start that Loki's half giant, half god or something.
Yeah. So essentially, I guess it's not as bad for him. But I'm assuming that because the giants and the gods are enemies, fraternizing with them in any kind of way, especially having children with them, is definitely frowned upon. Yeah. But yeah, the children, so we'll go through each one of them. So first you have Fenrir, which is the giant wolf, who does appear in the Marvel books, or the Marvel shows. I think it's in the Dark Fate, what do you call that one? Or the Dark World, whatever that movie's called.
Does he,
I don't remember Fenrir being in that,
Yeah, so there's a giant, I think it's, that one Kate Blanchett plays, the sister.
She plays Hel, yeah.
That's, is that not Ragnarok, no?
That's right.
Yeah, it's Ragnarok as well, yeah. So the big...
I don't remember Fenrir in that either.
He runs across the bridge, the Bifrost. Watch it again. Anyway, he's on that. But I think the thing with Fenrir is that he just keeps growing, and he essentially keeps challenging the gods to tie him up, and he's going to be able to break any chain, and then they essentially trick him into being bound with some chain called Gleipnir, and it's made by the dwarves and it's unbreakable. But I like the whole way that's done. He's kind of like, we're going to tie you up with this rope, and Fenrir knows he senses the trick, so he's like, okay, I want one of the gods to put their hand in my mouth, and then if I can't break free, you can untie me, and if you don't untie me, then the god will lose his hand. And the god that does it is Tyr, so he's the god of war. He's the one that actually raises Fenrir. And what happens is the other gods don't care, they don't untie him and let Tyr lose his hand. So I think you can see that the gods, they're as we just said before, they are dicks, like they're just not they're not nice to each other either. Like they're just kind of the way they treat each other. Whereas Tyr did that because he had this bond with the wolf.
At this point, do we know about the prophecy with Fenrir and everything, that he is going to play a big role in Ragnarok?
That's what I was going to bring up. I think so. The reason they start tying him up is at first they tie him up the first time, and then he sort of keeps asking for it after that to prove how strong he is. But the first time, I think it's because Odin has a prophecy or something that Fenrir is going to kill him.
Yeah.
He's going to eat the world, right? Eat the sun or something, isn't he? He's going
to eat the moon and the sun.
Eat the sun, yeah. So to stop that from happening, he says, "Okay, we'll tie him up then."
Yeah.
But at the end, I think it's at the end of the story, Fenrir says, "I would have been happy enough if he had just left me alone."
So he creates,
so
he creates the own,
That is always the case with those kind of omens, isn't it? Like those omens are always like, whenever you believe this prophecy is going to happen, like say Harry Potter, Voldemort believes his child is going to kill him. His staying and trying to remove this child is exactly what leads to him getting killed by him in the end. Spoiler.
Yeah. Is that a self-fulfilling prophecy or something like that?
Yeah.
Where because you've been told about the prophecy, it happens, kind of thing.
That's interesting to see how old these stories are. This self-fulfilled prophecy story is, goes back, but even before these times, it's
there's a lot of poeticism about it.
I also like how they made the chain, the final chain. I just not how they made it, but what it's made of.
It's like a ribbon. It's not a chain. It's like
Do you guys remember
it's
the saliva of a baker, isn't it, or the?
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's all things that don't exist now, like they say the beard of a woman or the roots of a mountain. Or I think the breath of a fish was another one.
Yeah, and then Neil Gaiman says he's like, you say you have not seen these things. Of course you haven't. They were all used up in the forming of the chain, which was cool. I
like that. I thought that was really good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a nice part of the book. So I think then the other children, who I think Fenrir being the main one, the most interesting one, but then there's the sea serpent, Jormungandr. Who's tossed into the sea.
Serpent.
So essentially the serpent's supposed to be massive and surrounds the whole of Midgard, and then we will see Thor does battle the serpent later. And then Hel, who is, I guess, is quite an important one, who Odin then appoints as the ruler of Helheim, which is the realm of the dead. There is a story then later about Hel, so we'll maybe come back and talk about her later. I didn't think that
the only criticism for this chapter I have is that there wasn't enough on the other two children, Hel and Jormungandr.
Yeah,
it does centre on Fenrir, and I did want to see more. Maybe not so much about Jormungandr because it's just a big snake, and it doesn't. I don't think it speaks or anything. Yeah, I think that Jormungandr does appear in that a later story. They both do, and then Hel has more of a full story, whereas Jormungandr again just kind of appears in another story. Yeah.
The fact he plays such an important role in Ragnarok too, he probably should be set up a bit more.
Yeah. And also, why are Loki's children monsters?
Because he had them with a giantess.
Because the horse child that he has also has 8 legs. I'm not concerned.
I think it's because he commits an atrocious act. He creates monsters is kind of is what my interpretation of it was.
I see.
He was obviously smoking around his pregnant wife.
He was also cheating on his actual wife.
I know.
Yeah.
So it's the whole bastard thing, I guess, right?
What I wanted to say about this chapter too is I think I love Neil Gaiman's Fenrir voice. I think it's really terrifying. It's really a great. I think some of his voices, Thor is really good as well, but the Fenrir I think is probably the best one he does in the book, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I would agree.
So the next chapter is Frey's unusual wedding. So there's not too much for me. I don't have too much to say about this. I just do like that. This is a funny chapter again. Loki and Thor, they both dress up as like goddesses. They trick the giant. So the giant is essentially been promised. Freya again. As we say, she gets promised many times, because the giantess stole Thor's hammer, and he wants Freya's hand in marriage as a condition to return it to Thor. So Thor and Loki both dress up as goddesses to trick the giants. So Thor dresses up as Freya, and then Loki dresses up as like some kind of handmaiden or whatever. And yeah, they go to the feast and all, and the giants, like Thor dressed up as this woman's just like eating piles as he normally does and drinking loads, and the giant's just like, Jesus, how's this woman doing this? I think it's just a kind of chapter of comedy for me.
Yeah, it's just a bit of comic relief amid all these stories. Yeah, that's really good. I couldn't help but I can't help in all of these chapters picturing Chris Hemsworth and what do you call him? What's the actor who does Loki again?
Tom Riddleston.
I can't remember.
Tom Hiddleston.
Tom Hiddleston.
Tom Riddleston.
Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston. Yeah, that's all I could picture. Chris Hemsworth and drag and everything.
Yeah.
and just consuming these salmon and then pulling them out with the bones. I thought that was great imagery and everything.
I actually do think the Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston are actually brilliant. Like, they're just they perfectly portray the characters described in these stories. Like the way Chris Hemsworth is like pure jacked and all, and then he has got this like stupid kind of, just kind of that really brooding but stupid voice, and then Loki's just kind of this skinny, clever. Yeah, I just think they do those roles brilliantly. Like, if they're reading or listening to
the Marvel depictions, they are great.
Yeah, it's kind of just the faces now I use when I'm reading this for every story.
Yeah,
I tried to not do that, because obviously it would be too hard, or it would be too. I don't know. I thought it would like ruin the story if I did that, because I'd be just making comparisons the whole time.
Yeah,
and I wanted to be fresh, sort of thing.
Yeah. Anything else here?
Just Thor murdering again, like at the end.
Nope. Here I go killing again.
Yeah.
Here I go killing again.
So I guess we'll skip over the next chapter, the Meet of Poets. I think all three of us are in agreement that it wasn't the most exciting chapter, and we didn't enjoy it too much. So, so the next chapter, Thor's journey to the land of the giants. Thor and Loki, they end up find themselves in a giant's, I think it's a castle or a fort or something, and they're eating and drinking with the family, and the family want to punish, or no, Loki tricks, he tricks, how do you pronounce that name again? Thialvi. So Loki tricks him into eating bone marrow, and then convinces Thor.
It's bone marrow of one of Thor's like pet goats.
Yeah. So he once they convince Thor to take him and his sister as servants. They travel to this. Huh?
I think they called it a bond servant, wasn't it? That was the term used.
Oh yeah, bond servant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they travel to this castle. So I think it's Utgarda Loki. Which I always think is funny, just having the name of Loki in it, but.
No, that's the guy's name. I think.
Oh, that's
the giant's name.
So it's his castle.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah,
I think the castle's just called Utgard.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, I think the entertaining part of this is when Thor's tricked into doing the contest that he essentially cannot win, but he doesn't know that. So I think the first contest is like a drinking one. Yeah. He has to drink from this horn that's a very large horn of meat, and he drinks out of it and takes a big massive gulp, and then he looks at it and it's barely moved and stuff. And the second one, what's the second task?
Second task is
it Thialvi? Thialvi has a speed challenge. Loki, that's what it is. Loki has an eating challenge, and then Thor has another one where he wrestles against like a nanny or something.
Thor does 3 though, I think.
Does he do 3?
He does the drinking one.
He does the speed one.
Thialvi, the bond servant.
I think because I think he says like Thor. It's all about Thor.
I think he makes Thor do more like 3 as well.
Yes. So he does this. Yeah, because I know what the actual outcome is. So he does the speed challenge. He has to race, I think, and he loses. And then the last one is he has to wrestle the old woman. Who's supposed to be a giant, but she's like, because she's old, she's more or less the same height as Thor.
The second Thor challenge was that he had left Utgard Loki's cat.
Oh yeah, I still
Yeah,
have the
that's
cat.
right,
Yeah, so that was the
He had
second
like
challenge.
bench press his cat there.
That's right.
So
yeah.
I think the underlying meaning then, the first one is that he's drinking the ocean, and the fact, I think the Utgard Loki says, the fact that it went down at all means you took like a small part of the ocean. Like, it's incredible that he was able to drink it.
What I love about this story is that the gods are all like these. They're all made out to be these massive failures because they miserably fail the contests, and the giants are like, he basically makes out that, oh well, this is like kid stuff here. You're pathetic and everything. But then it turns out to be all a great illusion, and yeah, like Thor wasn't just drinking from a horn; he was drinking the ocean, and he actually took down the ocean to a degree where they were worried that he would drain the entire ocean.
And also caused like tides to exist
Yeah,
as well.
and the woman he wrestles against was actually it's not just some frail nanny; it was old age itself. So he held his own against time and old age. And Loki's eating contest, he could consume as fast as wildfire could consume, and I think it was Fjalvi he could run as fast as Fought. So it was like these stories that they like kind of emasculated them originally, but then it turned out no, you're badasses and everything. I thought it was like a cool twist and everything.
Can't quite remember what the whole left on the cat one was supposed to be, but yeah.
Can't remember that.
But I sort of copped on halfway. I think it was during the drinking challenge for Thor that it was all an illusion, because
Right,
we'd already seen in one of the other stories that the giants can do that. The Master Builder one. I was like, okay, this is obviously a trick here.
This is the same chapter where Thor is just like smashing him with a hammer while he sleeps as well, isn't it? And he keeps waking up and he's like, oh, I think a fly landed on me.
Yeah. They put a mountain or something in between him and Thor, and then he like shows him the valley where there's like dips in the valley. He's like, yeah, that was because you were hitting a hammer. Obviously your hammer would have killed me otherwise.
Yeah, I love this story.
Yeah, it's an absolute brilliant chapter. I think it's probably is my favourite chapter.
I think it's up there. I still think the gifts one is my favourite, but this one might be a close second.
Yeah.
Just the heritage of Thialvi, I wasn't sure what he was.
You need to stop
Was he
worrying about these heritages and just accept them.
Yeah.
Like it's
I did in the end, but like it's the sort of inquisitive nature of my mind. I'm just like, but what?
I think it's the fact too that like I've read like Greek mythology, and there's stuff that makes way less sense than anything in here. It's like how the Milky Way was formed by, I can't remember which goddess it was, but like milk spraying from her boob, and then you're like, okay, I guess that makes sense. Like,
that makes perfect sense to me. Case closed.
So I don't think compared to some other mythology, I thought this was all easier to swallow.
No, listen, I was okay with it, but it just had me wondering.
Yeah,
I suppose that's what books are supposed to do. Like.
yeah.
Yeah, but I'll never get an answer.
So I think I'm going to skip the next two, the Apples of Immortality and the story of Jared and Frey. Again,
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Yeah, they weren't.
Yeah.
These weren't too engaging in terms of chapters. We don't have many left, so I want to get to these last 4 chapters. I think are all quite good. So the first of those is Heimir and Thor's fishing expedition.
Just when I heard the title of this chapter, I knew it was going to be a good one.
Yeah, like, it's kind of like a simple task, but you just know how these gods and giants performing the simple task of fishing. It's just going to.
It just seems so funny, like 2 gods go on a fishing expedition.
Yeah,
That's what. Yeah.
I like what I think about this is so they go into the giant's house, and the female giant basically says that the husband's going to be home soon, and he doesn't take kindly to non-giants or whatever, like whenever he's cranky or something like that. So hide under this until we get him under the house and get him chilled out and stuff. And then she introduces him and introduces Thor as Theor, and then he's like, Thor, the giant killer, and I was like, no, Theor. And I'm like, you didn't really do a good job there. Like, you made his mind jump straight to Thor. Yeah, I just thought it was a funny part of this story.
Yeah.
We don't take kindly to your types around here.
I think then they go on the fishing trip, and the giant's kind of like expecting Thor's not going to be able to survive the cold, and stuff like that. But Thor's like, nah, no bother. So it's another case of them kind of underestimating the power. But again, I don't think obviously the giant at this stage doesn't know that he's Thor, so maybe he's just thinking he's just a regular guy, and they'll never be. So I think from this, he's kind of realizing. But this is the only other place then, apart from the last chapter, the Ragnarok one, that we see the serpent. So I think Thor saves the giant and then carries him home. So from this giant thinking Thor's going to be useless in this situation, ends up saving him. But then I think the whole idea was to get this giant cauldron, which the giant uses to brew like eels and stuff, like it can just brew it automatically. And he needs to take that back to Asgard. But there's a challenge then, like even though Thor saved the life, the giant's like, oh no, you can only have my cauldron if you
can fish, if you can catch a bigger fish than me or something like that.
Is it the catching the fish?
Yeah, he challenges him to fishing, and Tyr says to him, I hope you know what you're doing. And Thor's like, yeah, fishing's easy, even though he'd never done it before.
Fair enough then. Anything else on this one?
Again, here I am again, right? So there was earlier in the book, I'm nearly sure that Tyr is mentioned as the son of Odin, right? But then in this chapter, he's the son of Hymir and the giantess, and I got confused again.
I'm
Small
not sure.
detail.
It's hard to keep up with all these lineages, to be honest.
Exactly, Michael. That's my main problem.
Yes,
but it's a good chapter.
Yeah.
Trying to remember why they wanted the cauldron. No, I can't remember. But it's just another example of the gods being dicks, where they're just coming and take the giant's cauldron because they want it.
They just want it for Valhalla to brew some ale.
Yeah.
But then Thor showing how much a badass he is again. It's just these stories just seem to repeat these. The gods are Thor's badass, Loki's clever and tricksy. Repeat.
Yeah, they same
Loki's
tropes.
the biggest.
Yeah.
So the next chapter then, the death of Balder. So I guess we were all probably crying in this one. But this one was Balder, who seems to be like one of the most beloved gods. He's having these nightmares that he'll die soon, and then I think he dies by essentially getting hit by a dart by his own brother, which I think is kind of funny because I don't think the brother's not trying to hit him with the dart.
The brother's blind.
Yeah, the brother's blind. Yeah, so he ends up killing him. But
a mistletoe dart.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like so Balder has these nightmares that he's going to die, and his ma makes him invincible.
Yeah,
Which
Frigga
makes
gives
all
him
these promises to like different things, like trees and stuff, that none of them will harm him.
Frigg makes him invulnerable to everything except for mistletoe, because she's like, well, why even bother about that? Sure.
Of course, Loki finds out, that this is his. If it's there to be found, Loki will find it.
This is the Death Star. This is the Death Star vent of this of this universe.
Can we just like put a board over it?
Yeah, I guess like
think of the resale value.
There's nothing no story where someone is completely invincible, because obviously that wouldn't be entertaining. Like I think Superman's a good where he's almost invincible.
Kryptonite,
kill him.
I hate Superman.
Kryptonite is supposed to be light years away, but it always somehow finds its way to Earth. So,
of course, Kryptonite.
Yeah, exactly. Like of all the places it could go in the whole universe, it's like on a collision course with Earth every time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just again, the story's kind of pointing at the cleverness of Loki. But I think the other message too is the underlying story of you do not kill your brother or your relative.
Kinslaying,
kinslaying. It's seen as like a great crime.
Yeah, because I know Loki is he's like a pain in the neck to a lot of people, but this was like the first time he did something like really, really evil, because like he just killed his brother's son, or he was at least responsible for his death. So he's just flat out evil in this chapter. He took a big leap from being a pest to being just evil.
Well, but I did like that he gets the blind kid to kill the the popular kid.
Yeah.
The blind kid who nobody likes, apparently. I think that was mentioned as well. Nobody pays hard any attention. He gets him to kill the brother. I really like that one.
Yeah, and I think doesn't the story go on like they have to rescue him from hell, and hell says if you can get if you ask everyone and no one says that they don't like him, we can have him back. That's
Yeah,
kind of
Loki
an interesting thing.
disguises himself again.
If nobody weeps for Balder or something, was it?
Yeah, it's essentially because he was he was beloved by everyone. It's like if you can find someone, if you can, as long as you can find no one that doesn't like him, yeah, no one weeps for his death. You know, no one actually cares. So if you can't find someone like that, then I'll give him back. But if you find at least one person, then
And
he has to
Loki
stay.
disguises himself again as like an old woman and says, I don't want Balder back. Hate that guy.
Yeah, so it's another show of Loki's intelligence, but also his mischievous nature. Again, we just go around in cycles of these stories.
I think he had a grudge there for some reason. Like Loki didn't like Balder for some reason.
Yeah, I can't remember why he tricks him to kill him in the first place.
Just banter. It's chaos.
Just crack.
Per hard though. Per hard. Oh yeah, that's what the other thing I was gonna say is Balder supposed to be like Achilles? Is that like a wee like nod there? Are they related somehow?
I mean, it is like the one weakness as an Achilles story, but I don't think there's any correlation beyond that. Like the Achilles heel
Well, does it?
again, which is another example of that Death Star event. the one weakness.
Yeah. But like, is their deaths not even the same sort of thing as well though?
Oh well, I suppose.
Like,
Yeah, I suppose.
Is it Achilles takes an arrow to the knee,
To the knee.
arrow to the heel,
Skyrim.
Skyrim.
We should
or is it
bring-
a spear?
Bring
or
that
something?
up in other media.
I think the story, the one in the Iliad is he gets hit there. There's just different stories in it. One's that he gets, the actual film Troy, he gets hit there, but then he gets 3 in the chest. But I think the Iliad it's like a poison dart or a poison bow, an arrow that hits him in the heel.
Yeah, but that's also a weird
Can't
parallel
remember.
because it's 2 arrows that kill this seemingly invulnerable guy.
True.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, true.
Yeah, I guess like because it's that story, the same kind of story, whether or not they drew inspiration from the story of Achilles. Who knows? Like.
No, I just I thought it was interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so the last 2 chapters then are kind of wrap up the story. So we first have the last days of Loki, and this is essentially after fighting with the gods, Loki he escapes. I think he like transforms into a fish and he hides at the bottom of a pond or whatever. But then eventually the other gods catch him. The whole point of this is they kind of punish him for his crimes. I think like this particular chapter is it's maybe you kind of feel bad for Loki in it, even though he definitely deserves what he gets. You do feel bad for him as well.
He deserves a punishment, but yeah, it's a very harsh punishment.
Well, yeah, the punishment is a bit hard, but isn't he punished for this is where the stories kind of start tying together more because he's punished for killing Balder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They find out that it was his fault,
Yeah.
and he's punished for that.
So
And
we now see that one incident directly leads to the next. That's starting to have some kind of progression. Yeah.
So the brutality then comes from, I think one of Loki's sons has turned into a wolf and then he kills his brother, and then Loki's like bound with the dead brother's entrails and then has like snake venom dripping on his face, and like he's hanging upside down or whatever, it's dripping on his face, and his like wife has to like stand there, catch the venom, but every time she has to like empty the bowl of venom, like he's going to get hit with it again, and he like is in pain and stuff, and say like I think Neil Gaiman then says anytime you feel an earthquake, this is Loki shaking in pain because she's had to empty out this bowl, which I think is funny. It's just when they try to relate one of these stories to like modern day stuff. But yeah, no, I think the punishment it's quite brutal, and he's supposed to remain there now by these bonds until Ragnarok.
I think it's the fact that they punish Loki's entire family. by
Yeah.
doing this.
yeah, so
Like,
the
Valley, isn't it, kills Narfi?
yeah, he makes one kill. I was gonna say, well, the reason that they don't just straight up kill Loki is because Loki has a blood pact with Odin or something, which means Odin won't kill him, sort of thing. But he can punish him really badly, and he can kill the kids because they're not bound by the blood pact. So it's pretty ruthless from the gods, to be honest.
Yeah.
And also, in a way, it's the cause of another cause of Ragnarok. Because
Yeah.
Loki's
Yeah.
like, I want my revenge.
This is the direct catalyst of Ragnarok. It's where all the motivations come from. Yeah, it's very brutal. It reminds me sort of the Prometheus. I think it's Prometheus, is it? Who's bound to the rock in Greek mythology.
Yeah.
But and that story, that was a very sacrificial thing. Whereas here, Loki, he was just not a good dude. But yeah, I think it was harsh on his whole family, and like this idea of being harmed for all eternity, like just the concept of being somewhere bound for eternity. That's what reminded me of Prometheus. And that's always feels extremely harsh, just to be punished forever and ever. But obviously, this wasn't forever and ever, because we do find out Loki eventually got free of this situation. But that was the intention.
No, so that's actually incorrect, Michael, because as Neil Gaiman describes, Ragnarok hasn't yet happened.
Oh yeah, that's
even
right,
in
Michael.
This is what's supposed to happen, but right now Loki's actually still there, and it could be eternity.
So is Michael. Yeah, and every time.
As Ragnarok not inevitable though.
No, yeah, I think the comparison with Prometheus is quite a good one. The only difference, I guess, is that Loki was punished for a bad crime, whereas I think Prometheus is punished for giving fire to man. Though in both cases, it's essentially you're punished for a betrayal, and like obviously betrayal is in these kind of situations and like gods and stuff like that. It's seen betrayal of like your family or whatever is seen as one of the worst crimes you can commit. But yeah, it's those punishments they always seem so harsh, like, because it's like no matter what the person did, they didn't do what they did for all eternity. But then again, I suppose like, kill end up leading to this by dying, and that is for eternity. So,
but everybody loved Balder, and then he just comes back later on, and it's fine. He gets out of the underworld, and like it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, the underworld situation and like the Viking times in these stories makes no sense, because it's like. You can go to, I think there's 3 different places. You can go to Valhalla, you can go to Helheim, and then there's another place you can go, and like the rules are very, like, there's no like consistent rule. It's
but that makes it even worse, because they punished Loki so harshly for the death of Balder, and he just comes back at the end, and he, like, there's no issue. He's alive again.
I suppose like you can't really kill Loki too, because it's like his daughter like runs the hell, so like if he goes to hell, he'll just like, I just let me out again,
Hello, it's me again.
Yeah, it's always like
any horses around.
I think that's the same stuff in like Greek mythology as in this. Like it's like hell is like this place, and you go there in your same kind of form, your body that you died in, but somebody can come from the outside world, grab you and take you out. Whereas I guess
as we learned from the Disney movie Hercules, which I hear is extremely accurate to Greek mythology.
Yeah,
just trying to enrage some listeners here. Yeah, he just goes into the underworld and reaches out for his girlfriend, I believe.
Yeah. So the final chapter then.
Well, just one more thing. Did either of you think it was really dumb how was it Kvasir discovered where Loki was? Like it was just completely like what?
Remind us what happens again.
So they go to like this shack or something where they discover Loki's hiding out or whatever, right? And he's just recently like bailed because he said they were coming for him, and basically there's like all this circumstantial evidence that leads Kvasir to realize that Loki's hiding in a pool at the bottom of a waterfall. From like there's like a fishing net that he threw into the fire because he didn't want us to catch him, sort of thing. I'm like, what? It was a bit mad.
Yeah,
it was good deduction, if you ask me.
Oh, do you think?
It's like, why would he burn this fishing net? Oh yeah, because he's a fish now.
Well, he could have just left the fishing net, and then they would never have known he was,
If he was so clever, he should have burnt it and then transformed it. He should have just been a bird and flew away.
He should have just been like, an insect again and just sat there.
Like some absolute minute that like they would never. Just wanted I guess that wouldn't have made an interesting story.
No, I just wanted to get your opinion on that, because it was so strange to me. It's like they could have just left this whole shack part out, and they just find him somewhere and chase him to a pool. I don't know, it was a bit weird.
Okay, I think there's a lot of like those mythologies. They're not like modern day stories. They're just kind of, or everything has to be a complete answer. It's just like we'll just say this, and it doesn't matter if people don't get it. Like
matters to me.
Yeah. So moving on then to the last chapter, Ragnarok, the final destiny of the gods. So Neil says that this chapter is different in that everything else has been things that have happened in our past. And this is something that is yet to happen. So this Ragnarok, I'm sure a lot of people will be have heard of, is like the end of days. In this Norse mythology, I believe then that there's supposed to be a rebirth, and that things will be reborn, but like be different. So the gods and all they won't exist anymore, but there'll be something after. I was doing a bit of reading there online that says that might actually not have been. I think they originally just said that this was the end of all things, and that was it. And I think, like,
Yeah, because that's what I thought Ragnarok was supposed to be, just the end of everything.
Yeah, like it's the ends, like, and it just ends. But I think like it might be Christianity or something like that. The Christians that kind of translated these stories, just were like, there has to be something after, like there has to be some eternal life. You know what I mean?
There has to be some kind of rebirth.
Yeah, so they added that part in. I believe that's what they think, but I don't think they're sure if this was the original or not. But
yeah.
Anyway, so in this chapter, Loki and Fenrir, so that's Loki's son, the wolf, who was tied up as well. So, and Loki, who was tied up in the last chapter, they're freed, and together with the serpent Jormungandr and Hel's legions, that Hel being another daughter of Loki, as well as the giants, they all come together and fight against the gods in a final battle. So this battle is supposed to be, it's supposed to destroy most of the world, and almost every participant is supposed to die. The only gods that actually survive is Modi and Magni, which are the sons of Thor, and Vali and Vidar, who are the sons of Odin. And then Balder and Hod managed to return from the underworld. So yeah, Stephen, like you're saying, they just, for some reason, they're able to just come back. But I guess it's because Hel, she left the underworld with all her legions, so I guess it's not guarded or whatever anymore.
It's like, I imagine it just being like the portal scene in Avengers Endgame, where all the gods just come out of the portals.
Yeah, I guess that's probably is what that's drawn from as well.
Balder's like, on your left, and Hod's like, where? Because he can't see.
They're supposed to be then two humans as well, Lif and Seer. They both survive as well, and they're supposed to give the new generation of humans. But I think the chapter starts with Loki and Fenrir getting free, but I think it's like some kind of like earthquake. There's supposed to be that big fire, like you see that in the Marvel movies, the big fire monster. I can't remember his name. Yeah, so he's supposed to come, and I think his coming creates like earthquakes and stuff, which is how Loki like breaks all chains and ties and stuff. That's how they get free in the first place. But yeah, what did you think about this chapter? I think it's a good way to end any story is with the end of all times.
Yeah,
I liked it. I did take issue with the rebirth part, as you said. I don't think I would have just rather it ended like everything, especially because it's like because it's supposed to happen in the future. I would like a full canonical ending sort of thing.
Yeah, because it just kind of tells us that the world is going to be different, and there's a lot of left up onto the it's left into interpretation. But I thought this chapter was really good. There's a lot of drama in this chapter with Thor dying after slaying the Midgard serpent, and he is poisoned then, and then Odin is consumed by Fenrir, and his son Vidar, I think, he avenges him, and then we have the battle between Loki and Heimdall. It was like an action movie. It felt like it was quite exciting.
You have all these money battles going on.
Yeah, it just felt like a lot was going on, but I thought it was handled well. I didn't, because sometimes in books, when there's big action scenes, it doesn't translate as well as movies, and you have no idea what's going on. Like, I thought Neil Gaiman handled it really well, and you knew exactly what was happening all the time. And I thought it was an exciting chapter. That, as for like the part you guys have mentioned where it ties up, I was okay with that. Like the rebirth, I did a few times when I've read this a few times, and I always, every time I do, I was like, oh, is that how it ends? I thought Ragnarok was the end, and but I kind of like what it's getting towards, that something new can arise from the ashes of things that are destroyed and everything. I like that message.
What did you think about the chess symbolism, about pieces on a board kind of thing at the end?
That
was
finds the wee piece. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I did like that. I thought that was quite a poetic way to describe it. It was creative and interesting.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Yeah, I like that Fenrir got his revenge because he did not
Yeah.
deserve that all that they did to him per pup.
Yeah, Fenrir was done the dirty.
He was done. He was just giving Tyr some love, and he was like just growing a bit big, he's getting big for himself.
It's not his fault. He was born a hideous monster.
Yeah.
I like the Loki and Handel fight as well. Like
that was great.
Loki's kind of like, you know what, it's over. I won kind of thing, and Handel's like, well, I can see further into the future than you and stuff, and I know that it's all, you know, you haven't won, everything's going to be grand and stuff.
That is the biggest FU to Loki, like, because he thrives on chaos, and then it's just like, nah, everything's going to be sweet, man. Like, that's the worst thing he could have heard.
Hello. No, yeah, that was my favourite part about the chapter was that part.
Nah, mate, it's grand.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought this was a great ending. I know you said there's a bit of controversy about the rebirth thing, but I enjoyed it.
It doesn't really matter about, like, to me, about the rebirth thing.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was, for tying up a book, I think I would have, even though it's a bit more doom and gloom that everything ends, I think I would have preferred it just to, everything's over.
Yeah.
No, I do like the end to be like, it's kind of like everything's destroyed and there's mass destruction and everything's in chaos, but then there's just this wee glimmer of hope, but that's it. Like, I kind of really like that ending. It reminds me, I always think of if you've seen the original X-Men movies, and like Magneto loses his powers in the third one, and then there's like a chess piece at the end, and it's like moves a wee bit.
Yeah,
it's always like that. It's like he's lost his powers and like all's helpless and all, but then you see this wee glimmer of maybe he could get his powers back. He still has a wee trickle of it in there.
I remember us talking about that at length when that came out.
Yeah. Did they even go anywhere with that? Like, did he even get his powers back?
I can't remember. No. Well, no, he does.
I remember if the new
he
ones,
does though, because
they have the old ones on them, don't they?
Because he's in
the X-Men. The X-Men. What's the word? Canon. It's all over the place. It's so hard to dissect. It's a mess, to be honest. But
it's because they have time travel in it, like, and stuff like. Well,
it's an absolute
Professor
mess.
X.
Yeah.
It's too. I don't know. Okay. So we're going to go into our rating section now and give our ratings out of 5 stars, and maybe talk about the narrator rating and what you thought of the narrator, because we haven't really discussed that too much. Stephen, we'll go to you first.
Sure. For pure enjoyment, I think it's going to be like a 3.5 for me. As I mentioned through the reviews there was a few sticking points for me that I just couldn't get over, and I wouldn't say ruined it, but it made it harder to enjoy, just because of how my brain works. For the narrator though, I thought he was really, really good. Maybe 4.5 stars. But yeah, I would say like a 3.5 overall for the whole thing. I'm not sure if I touched on this before, but the short story format, I do like it, but it's a bit jarring to me when the stories try and like tie in with each other.
Yeah,
I think I would have rated it higher if they were all just either one coherent story or just short stories completely separate, or maybe not completely separate, but like they didn't have as much bearing on the rest of the stories, if you like it.
It's good to hear. Yeah, you enjoyed it, Michael.
Yeah, I really like this book. This is the third time that I've read this. I feel like I've said that about a lot of the books we've done, where it's the third time, but. So and I've spoke that I really like Neil Gaiman's short story collections. He's very experimental in some of his short stories. He takes a lot of risks and stuff, and tells stories like I've never heard before. He's like a modern, like he's a modern iteration of the kind of people who would sit around the fires and tell stories of old times. I feel somebody who would tell fairy tales and stuff. That's the way I always feel about him. I love that he's so influenced by mythology and deities, and it plays such an important part in his stories. This is one of his best books, in my opinion. It's up there with American Gods and with his short story collections. There's a few stories on this that I wasn't that much a fan of, that I skipped over, kind of not as engaged with them. But I feel like it's hard to do a short story collection where you love all the stories. It just doesn't happen. There's always some stories on the collection you just don't like, so it's hard to mark it down too much based on 3 or 4 stories. I would say I was dancing kind of between a 4 and a 4.5. I think I'm gonna give it a 4.5, and mostly because of Neil Gaiman's narration. I think brings it up so much as well. He really does like take on that role of a storyteller so much. He's not like, I sometimes use the word voice actor to describe some of the people. He's not so much a voice actor as a narrator. I think there is a distinction between the two. He's very much just, he doesn't do too much of the voices apart from his Thor and his Fenrir. They're mostly just him putting on slightly to him, but that's fine with me because he's just, you can get his passion and his love for what he's reading so much in, and I think it brings it up so much.
He also
so
does.
I'm gonna go 4.5 stars.
Sorry, he also does something with Loki's voice where he doesn't put on a voice, but just the way he talks, like certain way he says things, you can get,
There's a different intonation, yeah.
Yeah, you get more out of the character. But yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
What would you say?
Obviously, this is my recommendation, and as I went through before, why I recommended it. But yeah, I just absolutely love any kind of mythology stories, and these ones, the Norse mythology, I think maybe for me Greek is probably my favourite, but I'd say Norse is a very close second in terms of the stories. I think it's the Greek edges on their brutality, whereas this, I think, is these are more comedic stories.
Yeah.
But no, I absolutely loved it, and I thought the fact that Neil Gaiman, of course, being the author and having such a passion for these stories, did a great job narrating it, and you can hear it when he does the narration. So yeah, I really enjoyed the narration of this book. Enjoyed the voices he did, and just the general actual narrating voice as well. I thought was quite easy to listen to. And I thought just like the actual, the book was quite easy to listen to. I know that some of the names and stuff like that and places have weird, names that we're not used to pronouncing and stuff. But I think the fact that it's an audiobook and we can just listen to the names, it's nice to listen to these names. Whereas I think if I had read the book, it might not have been as good. So I'm glad it was the audiobook version that I was listening to. So overall, I'm going to give this a 4.5. Yeah, I just really enjoyed this book, and yeah, I think in future now I'll be. This is the only thing I've ever read or listened to from Neil Gaiman, but I think I'll hopefully get on to he does the Good Omens and the American Gods. So hopefully read those and actually watch the shows as well. So he's definitely now an author on my radar after this.
Good Omens, really good.
That's why they call it Good Omens.
I actually just bought my niece the hardcover of Good Omens, the book.
Oh, nice. I'll be expecting mine in the mail then. Yeah, so we'll move on to the comparison to other media. Of course, this section could be, we could have a whole episode on this on itself, because Norse mythology has influenced a lot of things.
Yes.
And maybe I'll go through a couple of things I've got here, and then you can add on if you have any additional ones. So there's of course different shows. There's the show Vikings. Michael, you're watching it currently. I've seen it before. Of course, they have lots of like visions in that show about like Odin coming to them and giving them advice and things like that. And I think the main character Ragnar, and it's like everybody believes he's kind of like almost like a demigod, like descendant from the gods, and like a Thor kind of character because he's a great warrior and things like that. The show I brought up as well, the Norseman. I'm just bringing this up as another shout out there because I want people to watch it so it gets revived. But that's a show about, as it called, Norseman. It's about people and Vikings and stuff like that, and also has a lot of references to the gods. And there's a show on Netflix called The Last Kingdom, which I haven't watched, but I heard it's very, very good, and I do want to get to it eventually. But I'm sure that's also set in Viking times. I'm sure it makes a lot of references to Norse mythology. We've mentioned a lot about Thor, the Marvel stuff. Of course, that's where Neil Gaiman got his inspiration to do these stories and how he got into it. I think one distinction I did want to bring up just when I was talking about this is that Loki and Thor are supposed to be brothers and that, whereas in the actual Norse mythology, Loki is Odin's blood brother, so not his real brother, but it's never really discussed how he became his blood brother or whatever. But he's if anything, he's like Thor's blood uncle. You can almost think of it. But yeah, it's just one main distinction. I think but they do in this book, they do go on a lot of like adventures together and stuff. So I think the fact that making them brothers I like that story better. That if they were brothers, kind of like you've got the two sides. It's like them being brothers. They're supposed to be going on these kind of things together, whereas it kind of just seems a bit random. It's just these two gods who aren't really related going on these adventures together. But yeah, it was just one thing for me. And I think then you have things like Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings series. They've obviously been heavily influenced by Norse mythology, as the creators have both stated to. Yeah, that's anything I wanted to mention. Do you have any additional media that's similar to this, or wanted to discuss further anything I brought up?
So I was just going to say, like you said, Lord of the Rings there, like Tolkien was a big scholar of mythology. Like he, the middle world is called Middle Earth and has mythology, and that we know it's called Midgard, and this you could even hear it in the names. Magic items and stuff, it's magical rings or a Norse mythology. They don't touch too much on magical rings in this story, but it's a big part of Norse mythology. And then Skyrim as well, I suppose the game would be, I would say, heavily inspired by Norse mythology. I watched a movie this year, 2022, called The Northman. So this is a revenge story, and it is the inspiration for Shakespeare's Hamlet, I believe, this myth. So this is the original Hamlet. The guy the uncle kills the father, takes his position and stuff, and then it's a Robert Edgars movie. I would recommend it. It's quite it's a bit of it's not like the typical blockbuster or anything. It's a bit dark and grimy, and it's a bit weird at times, but I thought it was a really good movie. No, it's been a bit divisive, but I thought I really enjoyed it. And that's everything really. If we dug deeper, of course, we could bring up so much.
Yeah, like I said before, it kind of permeates all sorts of different media. The main one that I wanted to kind of bring up was, as I said before, World of Warcraft. The kind of lore in the Warcraft universe. A lot of it draws from the Norse mythology, and some characters directly appear, although their names are spelt slightly different. Like Odin appears, but his name has a Y in it and stuff. There's this character called Loken, and he betrays the other. They call them keepers, and this not gods, but yeah, there's a lot of like story in that that's derived from Norse mythology, and I that's another thing that I liked about the book, was that I could like draw between that and this.
Yeah. How to Train Your Dragon as well is one I forgot to bring up.
Oh yeah, that's more or less completely Norse. Like kind of like they have the Viking helmets and everything.
Yeah.
I guess we'll move on to trivia, which is kind of very similar like this. So, like I said, that the Norse mythology has very heavily influenced a lot of today's stories and culture. So, main trivia I've got is that our days of the week in English have actually all been named, apart from Saturday, are all named after Norse gods. So an example is Tuesday is supposed to be named after Tyr, who we've seen in that, who's the god of war, and who got his hand bit off by Fenrir. And then there's Thursday is supposed to, it's Thursday, and that's like in honour of the god of thunder. I think the funny one is Saturday is the only one that's remained named after a Roman god, Saturn, because the seventh day of the week, say if the week starts on Sunday, which a lot of people do as well. A lot of people consider it starts on Sunday. The Saturday would be the seventh day, but it's supposed to be the laundry day for the Norse. So I'm not really sure what that means. There just must be like no kind of praise to a god on that day. So they didn't take the name of any god or something like that.
Yeah.
Not sure why laundry day is. That just the day that all the Vikings went down to the river and washed their laundry?
Yeah. Exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah. But that was my trivia. If you want to add anything.
The main one that I found was that so Neil Gaiman mentions that like one of his inspirations for getting into Norse mythology is obviously the Marvel comics, right? But did you know that this book is being adapted into a comic series? So it's kind of come full circle.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
It might actually be finished
Yeah.
now, but I think it's Dark Horse, not Marvel. I actually don't know. Maybe they're related in some way. But
Is Neil Gaiman doing it? Because I know he's a comic writer too. He does the Sandman comics.
I'm not sure, to be honest.
That's Neil Gaiman does comics as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I haven't read any of them or anything. I just read read about it online when we were talking about when I was researching about the book.
Yeah, I don't really have any trivia. I just wanted to talk about one thing which I watched recently, and the Viking show, which is the, what do you call the sacrifice, the eagle thing?
Blood eagle. It's a form of punishment.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal. But I was actually already familiar with that too. Yeah, I just wanted to mention like another movie called Midsummer, which is like a horror cult movie, and you actually see that more graphically than you do in Vikings. You see the end product, so it was pretty disturbing, and they never explained what that was. So like my first time ever seeing that, it was just like this guy floating, and you could still see the lungs inflating and deflating, and it was the creepiest thing ever. But
Yeah, it actually is. It's no, it's a form of punishment, and it is actually they did used to do it. They actually mention it in Norseman as well. So it was a Viking way of punishing someone.
yeah,
So I think like if you were like treason or something, whatever the highest crimes were, that was the punishment for it.
Kinslaying.
Yeah, kinslaying, betrayal.
They should have done that to Loki.
Yeah, true. He probably
Yeah.
just sat there alive as well the whole time. But to be fair, he got pretty tight anyway of venom or whatever dripping on his face, like melting his face away. Blood eagle and venom. Now there's a punishment.
also there is the punishment that is known as Son of Mask.
Yeah, so I think it's us done with trivia. So we'll move on now to just what else are we consuming. So Michael, if you want to go first, what else are you consuming or listening to, reading?
Yeah, for some reason, in the build up to Christmas, I was compelled to watch a lot of horror movies, which is not very festive of me. But I heard that 2022 was like a great year for horror. Then I looked at the list and I was like, oh, I haven't really watched any of these. So I was like, I'm gonna watch as many of these as I can. Some that I want to talk about. There was a movie called Barbarian. A lot of people are talking about. It was pretty good. There was a movie called Fresh, and I don't even want to talk what this is about. It's quite a disturbing premise, but I don't know what it was about. The first quarter of this movie
Did you
was
say
like
fresh or thresh?
Fresh, like Fresh,
Okay.
and the first like quarter of that movie was like this rom-com, because I didn't do any research or anything about the movie, and it was like this really nice rom-com. Then it just takes a brutal turn, and it doesn't actually show that much, but just the concept of it is quite disturbing. And I watched more horror movies. There was this Skinamarink. I watched it. It was a really weird movie. It was it's quite an art house movie. It was, the majority of the shots are like door frames. It doesn't really ever focus on people's faces or anything. Just it's like a paranormal activity kind of cut, but it's not found footage. It just only pays attention to the door frames. But the premise of this movie is the most haunting thing I thought was especially being a dad. It was like two children wake up, I think it's the middle of the night or it's early morning or something. They wake up and they realize that their dad is missing, and they're in the house alone, and all the windows and doors have disappeared. So that idea alone, I just thought, geez, that is disturbing as hell. And it's a really weird movie. It's getting a lot of buzz, but it's really art house.
All the windows and doors are gone.
Yeah, like there's just
No.
blank walls, so they can't get out. And there's this like
Don't like that.
yeah, it was interesting. But yeah, I've been watching a lot of horror movies just for some reason. But I would say I would agree with the fact 2022 was a really good year for horror movies.
For me, I've not consuming a while. Still working my way through Game of Thrones. I'm on halfway through Storm of Swords. The book set is not the show. And then I'm also watching The Sopranos again because it's just so good.
It's on the list. I still haven't seen it, but Kira always recommends it.
It's really good, man. I think you would love it.
I've seen the first episode about the ducks, so that's all that matters.
For ducks.
For myself, to be honest, I've only really been doing one thing. I've been off since the 9th of December. Had to use up a load of holidays, and I've just got myself down on the dangerous path, and I'm from the very start replaying all the Pokemon games.
Nice.
And also watching the show.
Nice.
Nice.
So
It ended recently, didn't it?
it did, yeah. There's actually wild fun. I watched one of the early episodes. Ash catches a Caterpie, evolves it up to a Butterfree, and then the Butterfree releases it. Then they go to mate or whatever.
Aye, what a tune.
So I was like, oh, I wonder, like, because I obviously stopped watching it when I was younger at some stage and never seen what happened. I was like, oh, I wonder what became of that butterfree. It must come back in some episode. And then something popped up on my timeline. It was like, after 25 years, Ash's butterfree has finally returned. I was like, what? How? First of all, how the hell does it know that I was thinking about this? And then number two is like, why did it take him 25 years?
Well, it's not really in the show. It's not 25.
Yeah, no, well, obviously because Ash
he's forever 10.
He's a kid. But I think so. The Pokemon series is going to continue, but Ash and Pikachu are out of it now.
He looks great for 35 years old.
Yeah. Is that like the final scene of the show? Just Ash reuniting with Butterfree? Because I think that would be amazing.
That would be, but I don't know because I'm only on the first season at the minute, and there's usually around 100 episodes a season, and there's like 19 seasons, so I've got a long way to go.
Let us know.
Jeez.
In a couple of years when you finish it.
Yeah, but I just watched the first movie there. Michael Wayne used to watch it all the time. The one, the Mewtwo, Mewtwo Strikes Back or whatever.
Mewtwo Strikes Back,
So I just watched that, obviously crying my eyes out when Ash gets turned to stone and all the animals are crying. Or all the Pokemon are crying.
I used to have that on VHS and I wish I still had it.
Yeah, we did too.
Came in this like yellow case.
Yeah, we had.
I think I got it
same
from
one.
Santa
We had that too. Yeah, so I've been rewatching that, replaying the games. So I've played. I never played Red, Blue, or Yellow. I think I only started then at Silver and Gold. Yeah, I think I was a bit too young.
Right.
I think you all played it, but I was like, obviously a year younger than Stephen. I think I just never played at that stage.
Me and Michael completed the Pokedex in Blue. I remember us doing that.
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to do. Is they actually go back and complete those Pokedexes. But I played all three of them because obviously you need both of them. So the way I play it, you can trade between yourself anyway.
You play an emulator?
Yeah. So an emulator, and you can like spin up two games at once, and trade between them. So it's quite handy for that. But yeah, I just kind of each game I would have a different starter and then catch different Pokemon at the start and go through with those. But no. It's literally taking up most of my day. Like I literally just sit and play it while I'm watching the series at the same time.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely loving it. Like I've been doing it now for 5 or 6 days in a row, almost all the day, apart from when I'm eating meals or going to the gym or something. It's literally my complete leisure time. I don't.
Which is your favourite game? So like
replaying now. Well, because I never played those 3 original, but I think I knew the original regions because in Silver and Gold you go back to Kanto was the original region, so I knew the region from there. Just trying.
Did you play Fire Red and Leaf Green, Jonathan?
Oh yeah, I played those.
Because those would have been basically reskins of those original games.
So they're the remakes. But they had the updated Pokedex, but you could get all the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there were some differences. Yeah,
I think I really enjoyed the Sapphire and Ruby and the Emerald, kind of the whole region.
I think I
think that was kind of when I was a good age for that. Whenever that came out, I was kind of an age where I could understand what was going on. Whereas the earlier versions, I was maybe I don't really have an idea what I was doing. I
actually watched a video. I think it was either yesterday or 2 days ago, where there was this. They basically rated all the games, all the generations, and it was like community sort of poll thing, and Generation 3 was the highest rated consistently. Which is Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, and then the Fire Red and Green ones. It's just
Oh yeah,
I love Fire Red was my favorite.
But I'm gonna work my way through kind of the older ones. I think I stopped playing after Fire Red and Leaf Green. I don't really think I got any of the ones after that. But I would like to kind of play most of the old ones. Like I'm not sure. To be honest, I don't really keep up with it much. I think I played Black and White too. I think just randomly I felt I had a DS at the time and was like, you know what, I'll just get these. But no, I'm absolutely loving the memories it brings up and stuff. But yeah, it's consuming a lot of my time.
Nice.
Next one. Yeah, so I guess we'll go on to plugs then. Anything you want to plug?
I did another little episode of my other podcast, The Dark Tales, an episode called Moonshine. The last episode was like a vampire story, so you can kind of maybe guess what this story might be about.
Werewolves.
Possibly.
Or Robocop.
Or Robocop. But I did another part of that, and been thinking about doing narration for Soulbonder, but just to keep practicing and get better at it. But The one thing that doing this has taught me is that it's really hard being Northern Irish and saying some words.
Yeah.
I've already
Yggdrasil.
tried to say hierarchical. I can't think I
Hierarchical.
still can't say it.
Hierarchical.
Hierarchical.
But yeah, there's just some words that we find it really hard to say, and yeah, it's just learning stuff like that. But yeah, I'm having fun with it still.
Hierarchical.
Yeah, so that's the Dark Tales. That you can get that on Spotify and things like that as well.
Yeah, if you search the Dark Tales and my name, Michael.
Nice.
It's just Michael.
Yeah, I don't have anything else for my part, so I guess we'll pass it over now to Michael to do the next book pick. So, Michael, work away.
Yeah, so I am going to. We've been focusing on shorter books for a while. I'm going to break our format a bit because on the next episode, we're actually not reviewing a book. We're doing our year review episode. I know that we are a new podcast and we don't really have much to talk about, but we're going to do it anyway and just a little roundup of the last couple of months because it's something that we want to set a precedent for and do every year. So that's going to give us about 4 weeks to read the next book. So I thought this might be the perfect chance to do a bigger book, a longer book. Maybe it might take us even longer because it is quite a long book. It's 25 hours. So the book that I want us to do is called The Final Empire. It's a Mistborn book by Brandon Sanderson. It's an epic fantasy book. That's all I'm gonna tell you about it now. I'm gonna send the cover into the chat, and you guys can kind of try and guess what it's about here.
What's it called again?
It's called The Final Empire.
Okay.
Mistborn 1.
RoboCop.
Just before you guess, I wanted to also say that the 7th book of the series actually just came out, so maybe a decent time to do it.
Okay, just looking at the cover, right, and the name and the title, I'm gonna guess it's some sort of like wasteland, or it takes place in some sort of wasteland, or maybe like the afterlife or something.
Yeah, so just to describe the cover, it's essentially a backdrop of like almost like a gothic kind of or medieval town. So it's like a grayscale. You can just see church spires and things like that, and then just in front of that, you've got this character. To me, it seems he's some kind of spectre. He almost looks like a dementor, but it also looks like in his right hand there's something like poking out there at the bottom, which might be a sword of some kind. But I'm not sure on that. This is my speculation. I'm not even sure if this is a person. Like that thing there could just be a cloak blown through the wind, like. But that's what it looks like to me.
On some editions of this book cover, there as it does list the little blurb thing. They're the tagline. Do you want me to tell you what that is, or do you want to just guess based on?
Is it too much?
Tell us after.
It's a really good tagline, I think.
Tell us after we've both
Yeah. Okay.
And then we can.
So then I'm gonna go with it's about, so the main protagonist being this guy shown is a fighter, but he also has some magical powers, and there is a corrupt empire, and it's essentially about his fighting against this empire to weed out the corruption, which I'm assuming is obviously going to be to deal with the emperor or assassinate the emperor or fight the emperor on a battlefield, something like that.
Okay, I'm gonna say that it takes place in some sort of like wasteland or dystopia or maybe the afterlife. I'm not really sure. Something to do with like specters, as Jonathan said, or based on, because it says Mistborn Book 1, something about mists, around the landscape, so it's kind of like a barren sort of place, or empty maybe. The Final Empire, so I guess there's going to be, the people are ruled over by like a tyrant of some sort, or something there.
Yeah, those, I'm going to just tell you off the bat here, those are both pretty good guesses, and I'm going to have a tough time deciding between them.
RoboCop.
the tagline for this book was what if the Dark Lord won, which I think is a really evocative, good tagline.
Yeah, so my guess would stay, if just don't count this in for the
official guess,
whatever, but my guess would stay the same based on that. But like, yeah, so there's obviously like the emperor is some sort of super tyrant, and he's like, you know, really really evil, and
Yeah.
yeah, I guess the mistborn people are like remnants of society or something, and they rise up against him.
I actually think if I had known that tagline in advance, I would have said that this is the last empire that these evil beings haven't destroyed, and it's about the battle of, you know, trying to survive and defeat this evil, and this is the last empire.
That's good.
But that's obviously my post knowing guess. Like, but
Yeah. This text.
this is a fantasy, yeah.
Yeah, it's an epic fantasy. This takes place in Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere, which is basically his version of like the MCU. It's this interconnected universe of different series and stuff. So this is kind of like showing somebody Iron Man 1, kind of. This is like, but I don't actually know if this is chronologically the first book on the Cosmere, but it is a good entry point, I think.
Is this part of
showing them the Incredible Hulk first?
Oh, cut that.
The true original.
If is this book part of a series?
It's part of a series.
Like you say, it's part of this universe, but is it part of its own defined?
It's part of its own
well?
series. It's part of the Mistborn series. Has 7 books right now, but there's other fantasy series that take place within the same universe, not the same planet.
Yeah,
these are like all separate. Like he tells different fantasy tales that take place in different planets. It's basically what the Cosmere is.
But you have like the same kind of setup and stuff like that, and there is chance of overlap, but there might not be.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, understood. Sounds looking forward to it, and you said it's a long book as well. Kind of
25 hours. So yeah, it might even take us longer than the 4 weeks, but we'll see how we get on.
Yeah, it depends how much it grips me, I guess. But with the free time at the minute, like I've said, you know what? It just depends on how much Pokemon I'm playing, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like if I'm too deep in the Pokemon realm, then it's going to take me a while. But
if you can squeeze in like 50 minutes a day, I think that covers it for 4 weeks.
Really? That doesn't seem right.
Well, 4 weeks is 28 days, so...
I know you're 20, right,
yeah. That's right. No, yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it. Yeah, I've been looking for a longer book at the minute because we've kind of been reading short books.
And we've been reading science fiction, so I wanted to get us a fantasy book just to try.
Yeah. No, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Yeah, happy days.
I think that's everything from us for this episode. So
yeah.
Of course, they still have the Twitter and the email and stuff. If you want to send in any recommendations, we're
going to put that in the show notes. Yeah. So if you want to send in any book recommendations, we log everything we're requested. Even people who ask us to do this or that book in real life, we still log it. So we've got a collation of all these books. We're not sure how to handle it yet, but
once we get to a certain popularity of one book, we'll have to eventually be like, right, we need to do this.
Yeah, because we're doing really well, I think, in growth and downloads, but we still don't really have a community or anything, so it doesn't feel like we're ready to do listener episodes yet, but we do plan on doing that once we grow the community a bit more. Yeah, okay, so if we have nothing else, I think I'll say goodbye. Yeah. Thanks for listening. Thank you. We'll see you next episode.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.